Hello, this is the I don't know what I'm talking about podcast on the I don't know channel, and this is a US Open Women's podcast, and so this is basically a preview of the semifinals podcast. But I'll get into some other things, including a review of my women's bracket that I did before it started. Talking about Cocoa Gauff and Osaka, even though I didn't see the match, and but talking about just the two players, and especially Cocoa Gauff, and how she should feel ashamed that she lost to Osaka, and I'm also going to talk about the armed forces basketball teams and how they can have an advantage through the times of the NIL and transfer portal and all that. So throw some basketball in at the end. But talking about the semifinals, so I watched. So the first one would be Sabalenka and Pagula, and I think I've barely seen bits of them play this tournament. But I want to say I saw her play the game, which I think was right after, or it was during part of the Djokovic versus Nori game. I don't know if it finished after or before. But yeah, I saw just part of her game. One game in this tournament, and the same for Pagula, and they both looked good. And I know Sabalenka, they say she's struggling, and her scores are not, she's not as dominant. But I feel like the little bit I watched of that game the other day, and she's hitting the ball great, and she's, and I want to say it was versus Buxa, but I'm not totally sure. But her shot making still there, her power. I think she's doing fine, and to me, she's still the best player in the field. I haven't really seen Anna Samova play. I'm excited to see her play, but I think Pagula's good. I think I underrate her. I think I had her getting knocked out by Samsonova coming in to the tournament in the fourth round, which, like, as soon as I did it after I made my video, I was like, yeah, I shouldn't have picked Samsonova to beat Pagula. So I underrate her, and she's a good player. She has more hitting power than I give her credit for sometimes. She moves around well, but I think Sabalenka just moves around better, hits the ball harder, better shot maker, and I think, I didn't watch the US Open final last year, but I think she'll win this match like she won the US Open final. And I think it's going to be in 2 sets, honestly. I don't see Pagula getting a set off of her. Even though people talk about how Sabalenka's struggling and she hasn't, the games have been closer than they should, still hasn't lost a set through the whole tournament. So, I know she had the walkover, the person, I don't know why Vondrousova didn't play, honestly. I think it was injury, but I'm not sure. But I would take Sabalenka going into the first semifinal matchup. And then Osaka and Anna Samova. I would take Osaka just because I haven't seen Anna Samova play, and Osaka's really great, and she seems like, she's getting back. I didn't watch tennis before the 2022 US Open, so I never really saw Osaka at her peak and when she won multiple majors and stuff like that. But as soon as I've seen her, which I don't know if it was 2022, 2023, the talent level's there. I think it's always been there. I know she's had she basically took a break twice, one for a pregnancy and one for I don't know if it was mental health or injuries or a combination, but she was definitely going through some mental struggles. And I think, I didn't see her when she was at her peak, but I think just as far as being a dominant player, she's made a lot of strides, and to using the talent to get the results that the talent should get. But to me, she's like, she should have won that match. And Makova's great. I thought Makova was better than Osaka coming into the tournament. Now watching that game, I think maybe Osaka's just a little bit better. But she should have closed that second set. Shouldn't have went 7-6. Because Makova was hurt through the whole set, and she wasn't moving that well, and Osaka still let her hang around. Makova won the first game 1-0, so then Osaka had to break back, and then Makova made it 6-5, I'm pretty sure. Or she broke at some point, either 5-4 or 6-5 late, and Osaka had to break back. And it just shouldn't have been that close. Makova wasn't moving around like she normally does, and Osaka has more than enough talent to end that earlier. So I just wonder, I don't know if there's still a level of mental hurdles just to be as dominant as she can be in a way. And maybe she was always the type of player that let people hang around, because I didn't really watch her when she was at her peak. But sometimes I feel like she still has room to get better and be the kind of player, to be an even better player. Because I think, like, talent wise, she's a poor man's Serena, like with the way she hits and her shot making. And Serena's obviously a lot bigger, a lot better at hitting the ball. And I only saw Serena at the very end, that last tournament, but you could still see what Serena could do. But I think she could still get better. She's finally seeded in a major. That's the first time I've ever seen it since I've been watching it since 2022. And I think she's going up and will still go up. But I think, and the little bit of highlights I've seen from Anna Samova, never watched a full match. I know she went to the Wimbledon Championship, got 6-0'd by Iga, but she came back and beat her this tournament. So that's good. And she looks, from the Iga match, just the highlights, she looks strong. She looks like she could really hit. Naomi might not be the better player, but I've just seen full games of Naomi, and I think she's one of the best players on tour, talent-wise, and she's finally starting to get that talent-wise to get some results, get some seeds so she can get through some easier matches before she had to play people like Makova. I know they were talking about that on the broadcast. So yeah, I'm taking Naomi in that semifinals, and then I'm taking Arena I'm gonna stick with that pick that I made in my bracket before the tournament, and I'm gonna stick with Arena Sabalenka to win the whole thing. So yeah, that's my semifinals preview. I want to get to my bracket review of the women's. I did a men's one too. I did a women's, and I went back and I watched my video, and I think only one person watched it at this point. But for that one person, it wasn't zoomed in enough. It was really hard to read the writing, and hopefully and I probably didn't commentate everything I was doing well enough at some point. So I'm sorry if they clicked out of that video, because it was hard to it was kind of hard to keep up with everybody I was choosing sometimes. I mean, you could do it. It probably would have helped if you had the bracket right in front of you, but I should have made it a lot easier. I should have zoomed in or found some other way to do the bracket. But as far as how I did on the bracket, first round I got, this is by my count, which could be wrong. I like the ESPN and the brackets, and they all do it for you. And I got to do that with the men's. I think nothing major bracket. But anyways, first round I got 42 out of 64. Second round I got 21 out of 32. Third round I got 7 out of 16. And then I got 2 of the quarter finalists, so I got 2 out of 8 in the round 16, and I got 1 of the semifinalists, so I got 1 out of 4 of the quarterfinals. So I had Sabalenka making it to the final 4, and that's it. The other people I had were Navarro, who was knocked out in the third round by Krejcikova, who I thought was very impressive throughout this tournament. And that's really the only match I watched her. But and I didn't watch all of it because I think they stopped showing it, if I'm not mistaken. I think that might have been the night that Djokovic played Nori, or maybe that was a different night. But yeah, I wanted to keep watching that match, but they moved off of it. But Krejcikova was very impressive, and you could tell like the first set or the first part of the game, she was hurting herself and beating herself, and then she started getting more balls in, and maybe not going all the way, trying to hit the line all the time. But she didn't have to always go for the line. She could hit the ball a little bit in of the line, and it would still get past Navarro, and she started doing that, and she won the match and had a great tournament after. But yeah, I had Navarro, and Navarro was really good, but I think that other Krejcikova was better than her, and I think she was Czech Republic. But then I had Gauff. I had Gauff beating Osaka in round 4, but Osaka beat her, and then Osaka beat Makova. So I had Gauff, and then I had Siegmund, and Siegmund lost in the third round to Alexandrova, who was a 13-seeded player. So yeah, and the only quarterfinalists I had were Makova and Sabalenka. So, it's probably, if I was in like a challenge or something, 1 out of 4 and 2 out of 8 as far as the quarterfinalists and semifinalists, that's probably not good enough to get pretty high. So I'll have to, keep watching people and just try to get better at this. I mean, there's a lot of things I could talk about within the bracket. But I mean, I had Taylor Townsend get into the third round. That was right, but I actually had her losing to Parks because I had Parks upsetting Andre Ava the first round, but that didn't happen. But Townsend, I didn't see her much of that game at all when she played against the Czech Republic, Krejcikova, but I did see it looks like she's lost weight, which, I mean, that's good. She, and she still looks like, she's strong. So, I mean, I look forward to seeing her in other majors, because it probably was hard to move around with that weight, but if she can have, at least a good portion of that strength along with movement, she could be tough in the future, and she's already one of the best doubles players, so, maybe she could be a great singles player too. I don't know how old she is, but, Yeah, so I'll go ahead and move on to the next topic. Okay, so I want to talk about this. I want to talk about Cocoa Gauff and how she shouldn't feel ashamed of losing to Osaka. I heard she cried and just was down. And I know she gets down when she loses, but I feel like Osaka, to me, is one of the best players on tour, and that's finally showing. And she had some of the games that, like, the US Open commentators were talking about how they talked to her and how she was, or maybe it was something they knew she said, but she's finally getting seeded in these tournaments, so she doesn't have to play these people really early that are really good. Like, I know one major she lost to Badosa in the early, I think the first round, and it was a great game. Badosa's one of the best players on tour, and then I think another tournament, she lost to Makova the first round. So Osaka is better than her seeding, honestly, even at 23, she's better than her seeding. The stuff she can do on a tennis court with her shot making, her movement, and her power, especially, she's a really great player. Former major, multiple major winner, and so I just Coco Gauff's gotten so much better to me. I know she lost Wimbledon, she lost this, but her in the French Open, she's up there with the top. And I always, honestly, on her way up, was kind of more down on her than other people because it's like I didn't really see the talent level that everybody, even though she won that US Open, I didn't really see the talent that everybody was seeing, but the way she can hit the ball, and she's always had the movement and the stamina, but the way she's hitting the ball now with how hard she's hitting it and her shot making, she has a chance to win multiple majors. And I didn't know if that was really, I mean, everybody was thinking it was going to be true because of how she started off at a young age and she was good and her success, but I think she has a real chance to win multiple majors, and many majors, and I just don't know. I mean, it's good that she cares, but I think it's hard to take every loss like a bomb went off. But maybe, I mean, that's part of sports too. For some people, for a lot of people, they take every loss painful, so they won't do it again. But I don't know. She gets so down on herself every single match, but it's not like she really lost to the 23rd seed in a way. Like, Osaka's way better than that, in my opinion. It wasn't that big of an upset to me. Gauff's one of the best players, and honestly, I don't think there's any other player better than her right now other than Sabalenka. But I think Gauff's going to be really good. She's young and she's getting so much better. And, I think this is just a really tough loss to a really tough player. So, yeah, I guess that's really brief, but that's all I wanted to say on Gauff. So, my last topic, I wanted to talk about the armed forces and basketball, college basketball, and how they might have an advantage during the portal era. Because, if I'm not wrong, I'm pretty sure the armed forces don't take transfers. They don't take transfers, and they really don't have a lot of people transfer out. So if you watch their rosters, like a bunch of their players return, and they return, and they return. And that's, to me, is a real advantage in this portal area. These guys are used to playing with each other. They're used to playing under the coach. And they're, the coaches coach them well. They're Army tough, they're Navy tough, and are Army strong. And almost every player out there is going to know how to be a man and take a few dribbles or get all the way to the basket or take a few dribbles, draw the help defender, and kick it out. I mean, you have a lot of players in college basketball that really can't, in a sense. They can dribble the ball, but they really can't dribble. They really can't get by somebody. You look at Army, you look at Navy, you look at VMI. I haven't looked at Air Force yet in a preview for next year, but the stuff I watched from Air Force last year, these teams have guys that know how to get by their man and, either make a play or kick it to the next guy. They all know how to play fundamental basketball. They all know how to play fundamental defense. A lot of them can shoot. They're so good at doing what you have to do that it seems like they do that on the basketball court. And, I just think in this portal era, while it's all crazy, maybe everything's going to get fixed where you can't go from this team to this team to this team every single year. But these teams can have an advantage. And I'm not saying they're going to make the tournament or they're going to be these great teams. Or they could. But, American is in Army and Navy's conference, and I think that's a tough one to get by. But I just think they'll have a lot of success. You'll see all these teams, and Air Force had a bad year, but to me they were way better than their record. To me, I think you'll see all these teams have a raise during this era compared to what they usually are in the past, 40 years or whatever. Ever since, because I know all these schools used to be like the cream of the crop in athletics, Army and Navy in a bunch of sports, but ever since then, ever since Army and Navy really hasn't been that good in basketball, I think there will be a spike of how good they are during this portal era, and they'll retain players, they'll have great coaching, and it's really fun to see them play because it's just like these guys, a lot of them, they don't look like they were the best recruits, but it's like they come in, they work, and obviously they got other stuff they got to deal with, but they come in, they work, and, they do what they have to do on the basketball court to be a successful team. And I think Navy and Army had successful years last year, and I think VMI did as well. So I think it's just interesting in all this portal era and everybody going everywhere and everybody throwing all this money at everybody, and the big schools might be trying to poach from the small schools, doing stuff like that, and you just got these people who are just kind of away from all that in a sense. Well, I think VMI takes transfers, but I don't know about Navy and Army or Air Force. I want to say VMI will take transfers, and they'll get foreign players. They'll do a little stuff, but they really don't do that much. But they retain their players still. These teams, they retain their players, and they coach them the fundamentals really well. And I think, it's just really good. It's a really cool thing to see in college basketball. Not that it's going to alter everything, but they're just nice, good teams out there that have an advantage through this portal era. Alright, so that's it. That's all about this podcast, about this US Open Semifinals preview. I'm probably gonna do post game of the women's semifinals. After tonight, I'm gonna try to, if I don't fall asleep, and try to do a men's semifinals preview. Alright, have a good one.